Shinobu Kocho is the most valuable Hashira in the history of Demon Slayer. There, I said it, and before you all roast me like a demon in the sun with all your comments, I promise you'll understand what I mean by the end of the video. Shinobu has always been one of Demon Slayer's most popular characters, largely by virtue of her being the Hashira with the second most focus just behind Gyu. But as a lot of us got to know more about some of the other characters, in some cases, Shinobu ended up being like the Woody to Rengoku's Buzz. In terms of abilities, each of the Hashira has something unique and valuable to offer. Gyomei is the most experienced and powerful. Muichiro is the prodigy. Sanemi has Marechi blood. Mitsuri is physically stronger than most demons. Rengoku has an indomitable will, Gyu's technique is perfect, Open Eye is unorthodox, while Tengen is fast and adaptive. But what about Shinobu? Well, Shinobu is actually a bit of a strange case. On paper, she's actually the weakest Hashira, not just of this current lineup, but of the entire group's history. If Shinobu seriously faced off against any of the others, she would have absolutely no chance of victory. And that's all because Shinobu is so tiny. At just under 5 feet, Shinobu is the smallest Demon Slayer in the entire organization. And as a result, she's not very strong physically and can't even decapitate a demon. I mean, that's really the bare minimum of the whole demon slaying thing, and she can't even do that. Shinobu suffered from an inferiority complex on account of this, often being jealous of other demon slayers like Mitsuri and her freakish strength. But even then, as the only 2 female Hashira, they actually get along really well. Mitsuri even teaches Shinobu Western cooking, which she knows for some reason. Believe it or not, they were even supposed to wear the same open-chested uniform. But the moment Shinobu saw it, she burned it and had the Kakushi make her a version that was fully buttoned. Instead of letting her physical limitations stop her, Shinobu decided to turn her weaknesses into her greatest strengths. And that's on top of arguably being the smartest character in the series, and certainly the smartest Demon Slayer. Despite her stature, Shinobu vowed to become a Demon Slayer after seeing her parents be killed by a demon right in front of her. Shinobu and her older sister were then saved and inspired by the stone Hashira Gyomei. And although he recommended them to a cultivator after they successfully moved a boulder, Shinobu would never be able to emulate Gyomei's powerful fighting style. After being trained in water breathing, which is pretty much the most basic one of them all, Shinobu's older sister Kanae created flower breathing from it. This graceful agility-based breathing style was then taught to both Shinobu and Kanao. But even this wasn't a perfect match for Shinobu, so she decided to create her own from flower breathing called insect breathing. It's similarly based on agility, but also focuses on bug-like stings in the form of rapid thrusts and stabs. Her unique stinger-like Nichiren sword was forged by the chief of Swordsmith Village. It's a much lighter, oddly structured weapon that would normally be pretty inefficient at delivering lethal blows. But here's the difference between Shinobu and all other Demon Slayers that makes this approach work. She handles demon slaying medically, a bit of expertise she picked up from her parents who worked in compounding medicine. Most other Demon Slayers only kill demons by exploiting their sunlight weakness. Even the whole decapitation thing is dependent on the weapon having been forged in sunlight. Instead, Shinobu decided to specialize in the use of Wisteria. Wisteria is a real-world flowering plant and is completely poisonous and dangerous for humans to ingest. But because these flowers grow best in abundant sunlight, this poisonous aspect is even more dangerous to demons. And although the sunlight aspect is key, considering Tanjiro was turned back into a human with Wisteria-based medicine, despite having conquered the sun, the flower seems to transcend even the sunlight weakness. It's effective enough to trap several demons for final selection. Even the family that serves all Demon Slayers free of charge represents themselves with a Wisteria crest. So clearly the plant shares a lasting history with the organization. Yet even still, Shinobu for some reason is the only one who takes advantage of it. Instead of struggling to behead an opponent, Shinobu simply prioritizes the delivery of lethal injections. Shinobu actually uses her sheath as a Wisteria poison mixer and loader, which made Shinobu incredibly effective when it came to killing demons. Now, there are 3 ways for someone to become a Hashira, and although it's not explicitly stated how Shinobu got her title, it's not too hard to imagine. The first way is by killing at least 50 demons as a Kinoe ranked Demon Slayer. The second way is to slay a member of the 12 Kizuki. The third is by being the Sugoku, or direct disciple, of a Hashira. Based on the fact that her sister was a flower Hashira, and Shinobu ultimately inherited all of her other responsibilities, it's pretty safe to assume that she made use of the third option. In fact, it's to be assumed that Shinobu and Gyu are the only Hashira to have inherited their positions. Shinobu from her sister's death, and Gyu from Orokodaki's retirement. But more on Gyu and Shinobu's relationship in a bit, because I really want you guys to understand that Shinobu was only 14 years old when she took on this role. That's the same age as the Miss Hashira Muichiro, who is often praised to be an exceptional talent. I think it's really important to consider that all of the Hashira, along with every member of the Demon Slayer Corps, is a young person dealing with some sort of horrible trauma. Shinobu, like many others, went from having a loving family to being the last of her kin. After losing her parents, Shinobu went from a happy child to an irritable and consistently angry young girl. It was only after her sister died that Shinobu's personality shifted into the one we are most familiar with. She does her best to emulate her sister's kindness and care, but can't help the condescension that her true feelings add to the mix. Not only did she lose her sister, but many of her Sugukos went on to die in the field. Only someone like Tanjiro with his incredibly acute senses was able to recognize the frustration and anger that Shinobu harbored inside. A visceral hatred of demons that was pretty much constant. Instead of accepting the normal life her sister wished for her, Shinobu decided to dedicate every bit of energy she had towards the eradication of demons. She fought to win no matter what. And this all plays into her relationship with Gyu. Not only were the two of them filling in the big shoes of their predecessors, but they actually both lost their beloved big sisters to demons. Reasonably speaking, if Shinobu is able to get along with her Suguko Kanao and her blankness, Gyu's perpetual calm shouldn't be an issue at all. So why does she bother him so much? Maybe it's because she knows that he's probably just as frustrated as she is beneath the surface. She wishes Gyu would talk more, so she goes out of her way to say things that'll get a reaction out of him, knowing exactly how to hit a nerve. Despite often disagreeing, the two are usually sent on missions together. Gyu respects Shinobu and her work ethic greatly. However, he does seem to be a bit concerned about her on account of her small size. And according to the ever insightful Gyomei, who has known Shinobu since she was a little girl, Gyu and Shinobu seem to really enjoy talking to each other. One could even say that they were best friends. I mean, Gyu even knows that Shinobu hates furry creatures. And like Gyu, Shinobu was deeply moved by Tanjiro and Nezuko's story, despite none of the other Hashira sharing a similar sentiment. After which, her home of Butterfly Mansion pretty much became the headquarters of our main cast. The healing, rehabilitation, and training she offered them here was invaluable, and aided in their rapid development tremendously. It's thanks to all this that each of them holds Shinobu in high regard, especially in the case of the ever-innocent Inosuke, who over time began to see Shinobu as a mother, even beginning to recall his own birth mother on account of her kindness, believing that he'd met her before all this. Now, while Shinobu served as a Hashira for 4 years, not a single demon managed to escape her. And the only reason I can say that with such confidence is because of just how fearsome her poison really is to them. Understand that unlike the lower moons whose ranks had been removed, replaced, and adjusted countless times, those of an upper moon ranking remained unchanged and unbothered for an entire century. For the most part, they weren't troubled by demon slayers at all. The only reason Akaza appeared at the end of the Mugen Train arc was to kill Tanjiro because his earrings upset Muzan. In reality, the upper moons and Hashira didn't really know much about each other at all. But what's different about Shinobu is that although she wasn't immediately recognized, Doma made it abundantly clear that they had discussed and evaluated the threat posed by her poison. And this information was delivered by Muzan himself, the same guy that hardly ever acknowledges the threat of anything besides himself and the sun. According to him, Shinobu's mixture could adapt to every demon. Do you understand how insane that is? To even be able to cause harm to an upper moon is an incredible feat. The sheer fact that Doma needed to take a second to nullify even her basic level of poison is a crazy opening hardly ever afforded to anyone. And according to Shinobu, if she was even just a little bit taller, she may have been able to decapitate Doma. This is upper rank 2 we're talking about here. Even after losing a ton of blood, having her ribs and collarbone crushed, and having her lung punctured, the worst injury possible for a breathing-dependent fighter, Shinobu still managed to stand and fight. Something that caused Doma, of all creatures, to wonder if Shinobu was even human. The sound Hashira Tengen Uzui is often praised for his speed, but Shinobu, in this horrible state with her breathing impaired, was able to move too fast for Doma to predict her movements. Meanwhile, Doma is the demon that created Gyutaro, the guy that overwhelmed Tengen. For the sake of keeping Shinobu unique for the narrative, she is the only demon slayer that utilizes poison. Just imagine if she actually shared her concoctions with others. I mean, even in death, Shinobu could all but guarantee the death of even the strongest demons around. By absorbing an especially concentrated Wisteria poison over the course of an entire year, Shinobu managed to make her own body about 700 times more than the lethal dosage needed to kill a typical demon. And although every part of her was poisonous down to the tips of her fingernails, she ensured that it was completely undetectable, even to the heightened senses of a demon. And again, it's not as if Wisteria is completely safe for humans. With how much she had taken in, we would be remiss to believe it didn't impact her capabilities at all, which only makes her more impressive. Even after complete consumption, this poison revealed no symptoms or signs of danger until it was already too late. And by working with the demon Tamayo, Shinobu managed to work on something even more effective for Muzan himself. This anti-Muzan drug was made specifically with him in mind, and as far as we know, didn't even involve the use of Wisteria. Which just goes to show how exceptional Shinobu's medical understanding really was. Being able to evenly contribute to something this ambitious in only a few months when you're only 18 and your lab partner is over 500 years old is pretty damn impressive. This drug worked in 4 stages. The first stage was human conversion. This was the base of the drug that was developed and given to Nezuko to turn her back into a human. When Muzan managed to nullify its properties, he inadvertently advanced the drug to its second stage, the biological aging stage. For every minute, Muzan would be aged by 50 years. And so, over the course of their long-winded final battle, Muzan's biological age exceeded 10,000 years. This greatly hindered his demonic capabilities across the board. Next, we have the splitting prevention stage, which made it impossible for Muzan to pull off the same separation move he used to escape Yurichi 500 years ago. And lastly, the cellular destruction stage, which caused his cells to die, which greatly hindered his regeneration. If it wasn't for Shinobu's contributions, the Demon Slayers would have had no chance of beating Muzan. And that's the case even if they were all able to gang up on him from the start. Even in death, Shinobu absolutely carried this fight. If anyone you know ever underestimates Shinobu, please set them straight with this video. And if anyone doesn't understand how Demon Nezuko ruins Demon Slayer, they should probably watch this one.